pat yourself on the back because you are right here, right now for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. How you doing this morning, Jared?
Ollie, I'd love to tell you fantastic, but that would not be truthful. It's definitely been a rough little stretch for me and my family, dealing with some unexpected things, and not super great, to be honest. You?
Yeah, likewise. It was a tough week. Had a very close friend of mine, his father passed away, went back home to Texas to go to the funeral, and of course traveling set you back a little bit at work. So not the best week in that sense, but grateful for time with friends and family.
Yeah, which I think is even, for me, I'm even more grateful for the On Purpose community and this time with you and the ability to find normalcy through our routine, even when things aren't going well. You know, showing up for the podcast and getting to share and express different things is therapeutic, and it's something that I really look forward to and that I hope our listeners are picking up as behaviors they want to emulate, because you're not always going to have great days. The world isn't always going to give you good stuff, but you still got to be productive. You still got to produce and show up where you're supposed to show up. So here we are, man. I think it's going to be a great episode. I'm sorry for your loss, and I've definitely missed having you around for the week. But that's life.
Yeah.
You know, and really your life becomes, what do you do when you handle those adverse situations? So part of that is discipline, right? Are you disciplined enough to continue to do things even when you don't feel like it, even when the days are bad? You know, which is ironic that we both kind of faced this week after talking about discipline last week.
Yeah, it was good. As I reviewed my purposeful practice from last week, the importance of discipline, I was really grateful to have enough discipline to not just easily be able to write off, I'm traveling, you know, there's been the death of a loved one, I can't get anything done. And I was still able to get the necessities of work done. So that was good. And also spend quality time with friends and family. So that was good. I identified ways where I could be a little bit more disciplined. Recently picked up a bad habit of smoking cigarettes. I've struggled with tobacco for a little while for whatever reason. The reason I give myself is just high level of stress. You know, about 3 months ago, kind of got back on the cig. So definitely need to have some discipline and get that reduced and completely quit here very soon. And I know that the results of that is just me being healthier and having a little bit more structure around my day. You know, I think that sometimes like a little cig break here and there, just kind of like breaking up the monotony, has been one of those areas where I have noticed like, that's definitely a lack of discipline that I've had. So I really reflected on that. And the 2 ways I'm going to be committed to becoming more disciplined is really solidify my morning routine and completely get off the cigarettes, because I have had a little bit of more flexibility with my morning routines from the 75 hard challenge, and then getting off the 75 hard challenge. So I really want to get that fine tuned moving forward.
Yeah, interesting. I couldn't. Honestly, smoking sounds like the worst habit in the world to me. I just couldn't even imagine a scenario where I enjoyed that. But yeah, good. Now it'd be good to get you back on track for it, and I'm definitely glad to have you back. So I think we can all constantly work on discipline in life. It's an evolving thing. So honestly, yesterday for me, I was very undisciplined. You know, we were dealing with a lot of stuff, and Andrea and I just decided, you know what, we weren't going to follow any of our nutritional stuff, and we were going to be completely undisciplined on our diet last night. And honestly, I felt okay with it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes allowing yourself some freedom and some leeway is good. Oh, yeah. But now today you're right back on track because your habit is based off discipline.
Right. It doesn't really affect you because you're disciplined in all the other moments. So that's good. You had a good reflection on discipline.
Yeah, I just love being disciplined, you know. I mean, I feel different the days I let myself sleep in. I don't follow my morning routine. I feel different all day. So I know that it pays dividends for me. And, you know, I hope our listeners get this purposeful practice in and really start to see how being disciplined actually is a good thing to have in your day-to-day life and will help you achieve far more than undisciplined habits.
Amen. Amen. Well, I'm excited about this episode because it can touch on many points that we've talked about here in the On Purpose community. And our episode today is titled Being Seen.
Yeah.
Being seen. And one of the first questions I asked you, Jared, when we were planning this is, what exactly does it mean to be seen? So
Yeah.
what does that mean to you?
Being seen to me means that you're not just fulfilling roles that people have assigned to you. And that's something I've definitely been guilty of in my life. And especially with the transitions we made in our lifestyle over the last 9 months, I realized that I hadn't been fully seen by a lot of people, right? Like going to work, I was a policeman, so the community saw me in that role. And then I'm a dad and a husband. And a lot of times you get caught up in the roles you play so much that you don't fully allow yourself to be a whole person. You compartmentalize a lot of things. Okay, in this environment, I have to act this way. In that environment, I have to be this. In this environment, I have to be this. And you kind of lose yourself in the roles. Some people call it the mask you play. To me, it's the roles. You're kind of like an actor in life. And being seen, to truly be seen to me is that I get to be all the things I want to be, and I don't have to be anything for somebody else. What about you?
Yeah, I think that being seen is the literal term in many senses of the word, and I've read in many books that being seen and any publicity is good publicity, to really have that repetition of people recognizing you. So I think being seen is anything from sharing on social media to dressing uniquely, right? To dressing in a way that will attract more attention, all the way to sometimes I will walk a different route on the way home to literally be seen by more people and have more opportunities to converse with people. For example, even another idea of being seen would even to be starting a conversation, like on an airplane. When I was on the airplane, even sometimes when I don't try and feel like it, or when I don't feel like it, I try and at least start a conversation, ask a couple questions, and make that connection. So to me, I think being seen is connecting with people. Whether that's through social media, through a phone call, through in person. But to me, being seen is connecting with people in a way that they are going to hear or see what you have to share, hear your message, or see your truth.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I don't disagree with all of it, but I think part of it is like, let's just take the social media piece. So many people on social media, I would argue, aren't truly seen because what they're throwing up is fake. It's filtered. I know my skin doesn't look like this, but I filter it anyhow. Well, I'm not being seen then. I'm this mirage of me is being seen, but I think a lot of times for many people that hurts inside because it's not authentically you. It's not truly you. Mm-hmm. And I know for me, one of the things that I actually do regret in life is that I didn't realize how unseen I was becoming. And I've thought about that a lot. I was fortunate enough to listen to, I'll probably get his name wrong, the Kindness Diaries guy, Leon Legothetis, I think is how you say it, do a keynote talk a couple weeks ago on just finding happiness and stuff. And one of the things he talked about was just a human desire to be seen. Mm-hmm. And as I sat in there, man, I literally started like crying. Like I could feel tears welling up, and I was like, gosh, man, that is what I've been missing for. Like I couldn't, I wanted to be happier in life, which is why I made the changes, leaving police work, doing podcasts, the relationships. I wanted happiness, but there were days where I didn't feel happier, to be honest. Even with all the changes, I was like, man, I still don't think I'm any happier than when I was going to work as a policeman. So why am I less happy? Why am I not more happy? And then I listened to that, and I left the convention right after he spoke. I told Andrew I had to take a break. I went back to the hotel. I put on my running gear, and I literally ran for an hour with one song on replay and just felt these emotions.
The
Just felt
song.
my thoughts. Gosh dang it. It's Leon Bridges. That was yesterday. And it talks about, and get off topic for a second, but that song talks about, I used to be poor, I used to have holes in my clothes, but that was yesterday. And to me, it's about growth and personal development. So I love that song. It makes me think. But anyhow, going back, I realized that my happiness wasn't a thing. It wasn't assigned to a job or a role I play. I felt most happy when people actually saw me for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt unhappy as a policeman because I couldn't be seen.
Mm-hmm.
I had to put up barriers, right? Because you don't call the cops and they come to the house and they break down crying with you because you're crying, and right, like that's not their role, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I started thinking, and here's interesting. I want your perspective on this, Ali. Andrea and I got married 20 years ago. So I couldn't share every day of police work with her because it would mess up how she views the world, right? Like that, I was a policeman because I could handle it. She's my wife and spouse. I don't want to dump all that on her to keep it. I want her world to be pristine. So that first year, police work's like an inch.
Mm-hmm.
I hide an inch of my life from her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's only an inch, so we're still fairly close. Then the second year, it's another inch. And the third year, it's another. Well, at the end of 20 years, there's this whole piece of my life that she doesn't know about,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't talk about because I'm trying to protect her. But what happens is you get distance.
Mm-hmm.
And as I listened to Leon speak and I started feeling those emotions and I saw some of the troubles that my family's gone through, I realized that every inch I put drifted me away from the very people I love the most, and that I didn't have good skills at coming back to them. Right? Like I was compartmentalizing law enforcement or police work or the trauma, the drama we see that I didn't share with them. But then I started realizing there was a lot of my regular life that was bleeding into this that they didn't get to know about,
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't get to share. The pain, the hurt, the sorrow, the being upset, the
Mm-hmm.
feeling of let down. And I really started thinking like that is what I'm truly after. With all the stuff I've done, the retirement, the owning the gym, the podcast, like I just, for the first time in many, many years, want to be seen as me, not as a specific role.
Mm. So what you're truly after is the ability to share more of your day to day.
Yeah, I think, and just to be allowed to be sad
Mm-hmm.
and to be allowed to be happy
Mm-hmm.
and to be joyful and to be kind and to be upset and to feel let down. And I think I had unintentionally spent so much time dealing with other people's trauma and drama, which is what cops get paid to do. And I don't regret it, but and now that I look back, I'm like, I got paid to deal with everybody else's issues that a lot of times you don't deal with your own.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because as your role, not only as an officer, but as an MMA coach, even before as an MMA fighter, a lot of these roles you have to lead by example, and a lot of emotions, not to say that you can't show them, but it's culture. It's
Yeah.
culture, right? To not show them,
Yeah.
to not cry, to not be sad, to not be negative, to not feel down. And I can definitely understand what you mean. So in this situation, there was definitely a cost associated to you being seen in certain lights, right? Maybe if other officers
not
saw
seen.
you or not seen, right? Or both, right?
Right.
So what were those costs? What were those costs of you being seen in those lights?
I don't know. I didn't do it. You know what I mean? So the cost was that I was not seen. So what does that cost me? And I'll be honest, I think I probably didn't have as good a marriage as I could have. I don't think I was as good a dad as I could have been. Because I was, if you just break it down. If say you're a 360-degree person, but I'm only showing 180 because I lost track of balance. I lost track of, I've never sat down with my boy and told him it's okay to cry. I've never sat down with him and told him it's okay to hurt and to express it.
So what would you tell him?
We wouldn't talk about it. So what does he do? What he mirrors. What does he mirror? He mirrors what he sees, which is me coming home, no matter how bad the shift was, no matter how much pressure I felt, no matter how much I saw, Dad just always kept showing up. It never bothered Dad. So then he thinks it's wrong if it bothers him, so he goes. And the truth is, yeah, it bothered me. I just didn't talk about it. And then he mirrors that same behavior. Well, so I don't know what the cost of being seen would have been like then because I didn't do it. But I can tell you the cost of not being seen was great. And I believe I'm fortunate to have thought like this and have people like you around me that help me think this way, because I think a huge detriment to many in our society is they just continue to repeat that cycle. Especially from the more macho type professions or roles people play. And then we repeat history. And that's why I think, you look at males are far more likely to kill themselves. They're far more likely to commit violent crimes, alcohol, divorce, all that stuff. To me, a lot of it is because we are so caught up in maintaining this role, being what everybody expects us to be, that we don't ever want to be different. We don't ever want to be honest with ourselves. And then it manifests itself in very unhappy and unfulfilling ways.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that everything's a spectrum, right? So there's being seen in full, and then there's completely hiding.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but in my opinion, I think at least with your relationship, you were on the better end of the spectrum in this case, because it is a lot. It is a lot. And who knows if you were closer to the other end of the spectrum, constantly sharing all of the hardships.
Yeah.
Who knows if that would be better, to where now I really think that you're doing a good job of balancing it and being seen, being very vulnerable without bringing too much.
Sure.
Right? There's some things that may not need to be shared.
Yeah,
right?
no, absolutely. There's always going to be things. And I think that's important. And maybe that's one of the takeaways I have is people have to earn the ability to truly see you. Right? Like our relationship is special. Like we spend a lot of time together. So I can come and tell you like my lowest points and where I'm at, because you've earned that I know you'll still be there for me and you'll help and we'll work together. So I wouldn't just do that to a stranger.
Right.
But at the same point, I do think it's important that we teach our kids to embrace all their feelings, to embrace all their emotions, to really be who they want to be and not get caught up in playing all the roles you think people are wanting you to be. Because usually when you do that, you get it wrong anyhow.
Yeah.
But now here's a question I have for you, Ali. Is on the flip side. When I look at you, you are very much about being seen. You're very open. So what is the cost to you? Whereas I was more guarded and cautious, and I played it like what people expected. You're you're flamboyant. You dress differently. You carry yourself different. What's the cost to you of being seen so much?
Judgment. Judgment is the biggest cost, because like you said, especially with social media, right? Being seen at the end of the day is going to be that person's perspective. So they may see a couple things and then they form their own judgment on me based on what I've shared and based on what they've seen. And it's sometimes, even if we do the best job of really trying to portray who we are, sometimes perspectives just process things differently. So I would say that the biggest cost is that other people are going to judge. But again, people are going to judge you anyway, right? If you're hiding and you're not out there, people are going to form a judgment based on that. Oh, I haven't seen anything from him. I haven't heard from him. He hasn't been coming to the gym. He hasn't been showing up to community. He hasn't posted anything. They're going to form judgment anyway. So to me, being seen is a great deal. If the only cost is judgment, oh, well, I'm going to get judged anyway. So why not be seen as much as I can? And the benefit, the value, what I get in return, the cost I have to pay for potential judgment, what I get in return is not only my own self-awareness, because especially speaking in terms of social media, since that's such a huge part of our lives today, if I put something out there, I can go and analyze myself later and be like, this is where I was at this point. This is what I was saying. This is what I felt. And I can analyze what I'm putting out there on top of have people close to me like you, like close friends, close family, people in my community, be able to give their opinion and feedback on how I'm showing up in the world as well. So I think I literally think about this a lot.
Yeah.
Of like, how will I be seen more? Even on my walk home to work of why, no, don't let me go the back road. Let me go to college. I want people to see me. I want to be seen. I want more opportunities to connect and speak to people. But at the same time, I'm just as guilty as the next person of not wanting to be seen many times, of not wanting to go to that social event, just wanting to stay home, or, maybe not wanting to post, or maybe not feeling like doing a DAT grad interview that day, or whatever it is, to where I do feel the pressure of hiding.
Yeah.
I do feel the pressure of hiding, but I know deep down, I believe it's always a better decision to be seen.
And why is that? Why do you think it's a better decision?
Well, again, because the cost is minimal, judgment, and the return that you're getting is more opportunity to connect and self-evaluate, and also get feedback for more self-evaluation. I think that the more you can be seen, the more you can analyze yourself and build yourself to the person you want to be. Now, it does take knowing who you want to be in order for that to be effective. Some people just be seen without any plan or intention or idea of who they want to be. But especially if you know that, I think being seen is almost like something that you need to repetitively do to build that muscle of being seen. For most, at least that's what I believe is best for me.
Yeah. And I think there is a cost for everybody to be seen, whether it's judgment. I think, I was talking with my son about this, is part of, being seen at his age is you can be hurt, right? Because if you allow yourself to be seen, it may not work out for you. You may share something, somebody uses it against you. You may, there's a risk, right? If I stay close like I was, where I kept everything guarded, it's very likely you're going to be able to hurt me because you don't know. So if I allow myself to be seen, I have to accept there's some hurt there, the possibility of hurt. But then I also get to accept that there's a possibility of real joy there, right? Because if I stay guarded, I don't really get to enjoy my experiences because I'm playing this role. So there's a cost. There's a good cost and a bad cost. There's a risk and a reward, but you never know unless you try it. And that's one of the things I did as a young person is I felt let down a lot as a kid. And I don't have specific memories of why, but I just remember, like, as a family, we were supposed to go do something and it wouldn't happen. My friends were supposed to do something and it wouldn't happen. So I remember, like, building up barriers. So, like, you know what? I'm not going to get excited about anything because I don't want to be sad when it doesn't happen. And I would you'd invite me to something and I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll be there. But in my head, I'd be like, that's never going to happen. So I wouldn't experience joy. Mm-hmm. And I look back and I'm like, man, that is not good. Putting up so many barriers that you don't truly enjoy stuff because you're so afraid of disappointment. So there is a risk to it, right? Like, to get true joy, you got to be a little bit vulnerable. To find true love, you got to risk being hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a cost, both sides.
There is. There is, and I think it also goes back to the value of community, a previous episode that we talked about, and,
Yeah.
and even in marketing, they say, I think today it's like the average of 21 touch points before you make a sale, meaning that you had to see that brand in some way or that product in some way about 21 times before you actually pull the trigger. And that's what's that building trust subconsciously, right? Today we're inundated with all these things. And one more tie in, a very big love language, the book 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Highly recommend it. Check it out if you haven't checked it out yet. One of the primary love languages is quality time. And that's the one for my mother. All I need to do to make my mother happy is be seen, right? Even if I'm not contributing, just being there. And I think so many people don't realize how much of an effect that can have, of just showing up and being seen for people that care about you, people that love you, or people that you love. Just being there, showing up, having your presence is very big, to where that's why even a photo can be a lot, right? You being seen, a little selfie, being seen in that way can have a large impact. So you're right. I think that you do risk it, but nothing at all in this life that's worth anything ever comes without a
No.
little bit of risk or adversity.
Right. And I think you look at, I think most people know that showing up is important, being seen is important, because you look at, for majority of people, at least that I know, the red flag to something isn't right is they withdraw. They remove themselves from being seen, which is when we got to check on each other, when we got to take a few minutes to be like, okay, why is this person not here? Let me check up on them. So one of the things I'm extremely in tune with and extremely aware of is trying to see other people.
Okay, how do you
And
do that?
you're mindful of it, right? And you pay attention. And I'll share, this literally just happened last week. And I think one of the episodes we talked about is I try to engage the grocery store clerks, because I honestly love grocery shopping. I love being in a country where I can go down the store or go down the street to a store and pick up fresh fruit, all my family's needs in one stop. And it's literally one of the biggest expenditures I have besides my house.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to enjoy spending this amount of money.
Yeah, dropping some money.
So I try to engage the clerks, and I go kind of the same couple days a week at the same time. And there's this little Asian lady. And I need to get a picture of her and post it for us. She's probably in her 60s. She's a cashier, and she's so nice. And I talk to her every time. Well, just last week when I came in, I go to check out. She's like, oh, I was so happy when I saw you come in the door. You're so kind to me. It made me think. Say she works 40 hours a week, how many hours a day she's there, how many people that she sees. And she was excited to see me because I'm kind to her. And my kindness is I literally ask, how is your morning going? How is your weekend? Thank you for being here. Nothing more than just treating her like another human.
Easy stuff.
Easy stuff. Like we're going to be there for 5 minutes while she brings it up my bag, my stuff.
Yeah.
So I can either ignore her and just focus on this task and worry about where I got to go next, or I can actually engage and enjoy the fact that there is a human being willing to help me for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I shared this with my kids at home as kind of a learning point, a teaching point, is it costs you nothing to be kind, to say hello, to ask how somebody's day is, to greet them. So I'm extremely mindful of all the small people that play a role in my life and my days, of just trying to be nice to them.
Yeah, I think so. I think most of us, and I know I do this sometimes, is we imagine that it costs us the risk of being judged, right? Or the risk of being hurt. Of what if this person's rude to us, or what if this person doesn't want to tell me about their day? I think a lot of people get frozen and just choose the silence route, because I observe that too. And there are some people, but it's most of the time people in small interactions, it's very monotonous. Like, are you good? How's your day? Good. That's
Yeah.
it, right? And going a little bit deeper means so much to people who have been there working all day, having that same monotonous interaction with humans, to where like this lady remembers you when you walk in, and I'm sure she sees hundreds and
I
hundreds of
would
people
think
a
so. It's a
day.
busy store.
Yeah.
And what is the reward? What if she, like I'm literally fascinated by her story, right? She's in her, I don't know, late 50s, early 60s, working as a cashier at a grocery store. Like, how did she get there?
Yeah.
Why is she there at this stage in her life?
Mm-hmm.
Did she emigrate from the country? There's just so much I don't know, and there's so much we don't know about each other that we'll never even be able to find out or learn if we don't actually just greet each other and start with small things like, hey, how are you? Good to see you. Good morning. Like, we've lost that, and I think a lot of it is people are so weird. I think you mentioned this one time where if you go up and talk to somebody, now you're a creep. You're a creepo for talking to me. Well, no, we're not. Like, to me, it's much more creepy if we stand here for 5 minutes and I spend $400 on food and we can't even say hello. Like, that's weird to me.
Yeah, no, that is. And that is a form of being seen, right?
I agree.
Of taking the initiative to greet someone and ask them about their day. Or one that's been really working really well for me that I catch people off guard is, what was the best part of your day today? People will be like,
Yeah.
give it some thought, and it usually ends in a really good interaction. So I definitely think that's a way of being seen, but that a lot of us, the default is to hide. So why do you think we intentionally do that? And can you remember of a time where you were intentionally not trying to be seen in your life?
Oh my gosh, most of my childhood.
Really?
Yeah, when I moved to Maryland and I was one of the only white kids in all of my classes, and we talked about the episode where I had to fight all the time when I first got there. Dude, I didn't want to be seen at all. If I could have never left my room, I would never. It was just too much. The being so different. Not like just a little bit different, but like standing out where you're always different and being ridiculed for being different and being made fun of. And yeah, dude, just from like 5th grade for a couple years, if I could not have been seen, I would have gladly disappeared. And then when I look back, those are like my darkest days. Those are my most saddened days, and the days that I'm like, man, that hurt.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I was involved, right? Which was another thing we talked about. I had sports, I had community. So even though I wanted to disappear, I still had people that were counting on me that helped me reappear and kind of rewrite how I felt about myself. But no, there's so many days in my childhood, man, if I could have just vanished, I would have.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah, of course. I think on a previous podcast I talked that the first time that I had really experienced like true discrimination, racism was right after 9/11.
Yeah.
To where I started hearing like these terrorist jokes and things like that about being Arab and having the last name Abu Salam, and that was a time where I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want people to hear my name or hear these jokes because that was all new to me. And now in my older years, there are times where maybe not necessarily be seen, but sometimes when I'm definitely down on myself, I just don't want to interact with others, or I don't have the right energy to put things out to be seen. But like you said, man, the value of community, and that episode has really made me reflect a lot on how valuable that is, because they're almost like these checks and balances put in place for you to get back up to to par and above of realizing that it is good to be seen, and we all have these difficult times, and sometimes we all feel like hiding sometimes, but having a community and people that are counting on you and trusting for you to be there is huge. And even a few days or a couple weeks even away from my primary communities, I feel off.
Yeah.
I feel the need to get back to it. And if I don't, I know that somebody is going to be reaching out.
Right.
Like, hey, where you at? We haven't seen you.
Right. And I think that is the beauty, and you described it perfectly. It's that balance, because there is balance. There's some days you want to be seen, some days you don't want to be seen. But I would argue in that balance, you are truly being seen. Right? So I know like you're grieving, you're going through a loss. Well, I don't text you every day with, hey, what time's the podcast? Hey, I need this for the podcast. Like, I give you your space. But then like every couple days, I'm like, hey, bro, just thinking about you. Check in. Let me know if you need something. Right. So I would say that being balanced on seen and unseen and having a healthy relationship there is truly being seen, because it's allowing you to be all of you. It's allowing you to grieve. But that's also pulling you back to, hey, you're a needed part of this community. Come on back. We got a podcast to record. We got people counting on us. Hey, how are you? Does that make sense? And I think we sometimes get one way or the other. I have to be flamboyant and only be seen, or I'm going to hide and isolate myself. When the truth is, we're going to need both. Like, to be well-rounded, I need both.
Yeah.
But by, like you said, being balanced and being part of communities, it kind of keeps me from going one way or the other too much, because it allows me, like, I'm giving to others. And community is so important. And it truly is all we're left with in life.
Yeah.
You can have all the money, all the cars, all the fancy things, but if you haven't impacted people and you don't have a group of people that care about you, that are going to miss you, like, you're gone as soon as you die.
Yeah.
Like,
No, 100%.
Our goal should be to create relationships that last far beyond us.
Yeah. No, I had a great reminder at the funeral
Absolutely.
this weekend, and it was like, wow, the man who passed away was like another father to me. My best friend's dad. Always, he was definitely a community man, but he also had a lot of business and all these different projects. And it was funny, I was hearing everyone talk about him. He passed away young, God rest his soul, 55 years old.
Crazy.
And big 6'5" guy, always drink beer, hang out with us, looked strong as an ox, and death caught him just like it will catch us all at one day. And he had so many projects going on, and it was just such an amazing realization to be like, wow, none of those matter at all. None of his projects with his farm, we were even talking about getting in the hemp business together, none of that mattered. What mattered was the people that were at that church.
Yeah.
And the impact that he had left on them. And that pastor told us that day, he was like, wow, I'm overwhelmed, because there was a lot of people. There was, maybe between 100 to 200 people there. And it's from a very small town, Pleasanton, Texas. So it's not like he was in this big corporate world or anything. But the pastor was saying how he had just done a service before that. There were 3 people there. And then he left to the graveyard to bury this woman. He said it was a 77-year-old woman, and only 2 were left. And that was a nightmare to me.
That scares the shit out of me.
I can only imagine if I had done that little interaction with community and people in my life, to where only 2 people show up to my funeral. There's probably hardly anything to say. That was a nightmare to me. But with Paul's funeral, who passed away, it made me realize, wow, like all of any money he made, any properties that he had, any businesses he had, none of it mattered. It was only really about the communities that he was involved in, the people that he was with. Those were the only things that mattered on the day that he died, on the day that he was, that his funeral was.
Yeah, and that scares the hell out of me, is realizing, like, if 2 people show up to your funeral, your time here was useless. And I don't mean that to be cruel or rude, but there's no legacy. Mm-hmm. There's no one that's going to remember you were even here, and that's what really scares me. And being seen, allowing to be all of me, is so important to me, because I don't want to go to a funeral and have people talk nice about me or share stories, whatever they're going to say, when I'm dead, because now I can't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. By being seen, I get to hear the best of you while I'm alive, and I can still enjoy it, and we can still go create new memories together. I can enjoy my relationships.
Yeah. What sucks too is I bet you anything that this woman was probably an amazing woman with so many amazing stories, but she was never seen.
Exactly.
Nobody ever saw her. She always hid. She was always in hiding, and she never allowed herself to be seen. And then,
yeah. And my guess is the way she gets there is she was seen, she was hurt, and then she went back to her default was, well, I don't want to risk being hurt again, so I'll withdraw. Mm-hmm. Right? You're going to get hurt sometimes. People are going to let you down. Mm-hmm. It's the risk you run, but you'll never even get to experience it unless you get out there and try.
Yeah, and the funny thing is sometimes people admire, respect, and love those the most who put themselves out there and who get hurt because they can relate to that and because they're inspired that somebody was able to go be seen and not have the result that they wanted. So many people are inspired by that, but for whatever reason, a lot of times the fear can be great. The fear of that can be greater than actually being seen.
Yeah.
And if you continuously do that, you may end up with nobody at your funeral.
Right. Yeah, which is crazy to me. Do you think you truly see others?
I think I do a pretty good job. I think I do a pretty good job about seeing others. And recently, in the past 2 to 3 years of my life, I've focused more on seeing others instead of hearing them.
Yeah.
Really observing their actions.
And what do you think's the difference between seeing and hearing? What do you mean by that?
Well, people don't always do what they're going to say.
Yeah.
People can say one thing and do another. And I think that I have done a much better job of just remaining neutral and trying to practice non-judgment, just observing, even with myself, just observing, not being too hard on myself. Maybe when I slack on discipline or slack on this, but more just observing. Why am I acting like this? Why am I showing up this way to be seen like this? What's causing this? And again, balancing, counterbalancing if it's something that I want to be doing less of or even more of, and trying to get to where I want to be with my core values and who I want to be and what type of legacy I want to leave, what I want people to be saying at my funeral. So I think that,
And I think that's a good practice, and I do that as well. Is what would they say about me? Like, would they actually miss me? Would they say this is a guy that got the most out of his life, that helped others be better, that truly lived life, or would there be two people and this is somebody that just eked through and just did what was expected all the time by everybody else and never even lived their happiness?
yeah,
Never even allowed themselves to be happy. And which kind of ties me into the question I asked you about, do you truly see others? And police work, it's hard. Because literally, just by the nature of your job, right, there can be 100 people celebrating having the best day of their life. And your job is to find the 1 out of 100 that's doing bad stuff. So you don't necessarily, and I realized this when I was with Andrea and we were working a farmer's market, and I literally just talked to everybody. And I had, I sat and had conversations with everybody, and I realized I missed that. Because even as a policeman, even if I'm not investigating something, when you're interacting with them, you're interacting in a different way. Because they're a cop, right? So you're not, either you're lying, right? Do you know the speed limit? No, sir, I don't know the speed limit, even though you know damn well you know it, right? So people will lie to you a lot. Or 2, it's just a very guarded conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the nature of their job. And I realized when I started making the transitions, that's what I missed the most, was actually just getting to learn who people were.
Wow.
Truly. Not in this role of, he's a cop, so I'm only going to tell him what I want him to know, or lying.
Right. And you know what, Jared? That's still going to happen with you sometimes.
Yeah, but
people
now,
even knowing that
that's
a
true.
cop.
Yeah, that's true.
Not to that extent, of course, when you're in uniform. But I mean, frankly, I've heard guys in the gym being like, "Oh, well, Jared's a cop," and that following you a little bit to where it's interesting, and you may have to try a little bit harder to be seen. But you do also have
But I have a whole different
skill.
Community that, especially business-wise now, that when you come in as a businessman, you represent what you're bringing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas at the gym, I've been a cop there since 2012, so I'm every years. So that there's still, like, the new students won't know I used to. Does that make sense? And it's not like an embarrassment or shame. I loved being a cop, and it was great for what it did. But it definitely affects how honestly people interact with you.
No, that's great. That's great. And at the end of the day, even if they do have that knowledge, you're still seeing how they want to show up with that knowledge.
Well, and the other difference is, in police work, I didn't get to pick who I interacted with. It was whoever called 911. You may not like them, you may not want to interact with them again, but if they call again, you got to go again. Whereas now, in controlling my own destiny, controlling my own businesses, my own, wherever I'm going, if you show up and you lie to me, you show up and you're deceitful, you show up in a manner that I don't want to be around, I never have to go back, which is empowering.
Yeah.
And it's something I look forward to.
Yeah. Amen. Well, you can run, but you can't hide. Someone's going to see you.
Yeah.
It's important to always be seen.
Yeah, well, be seen allows it to be on your terms, right? And I heard an interesting quote as we get ready to wrap up, and it said, someone else's opinion of you. So get this right. Someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. Right? And I was like, oh, that is so true, because we do so much stuff trying to see, like, oh, what's Ollie going to think if I do this? What's he think if I do that? It's none of my business what you think.
Yeah.
Right? Like be you, be seen, be who you want to be, because at the end of this, just like you found out this week, life is short.
Yeah.
You know, it could be tomorrow, it could be 20 years from now. But I'm not going to live all that time trying to be who people want me to be. I'm going to be who I want to be and attract those that appreciate that. And we can all do it. And that's the power of choosing to be seen.
Yep. Power of choosing to be seen. So we got some purposeful practice about being seen. And the first piece of the practice is identify the times you have been seen and how did you feel? The second part of the practice is identify how you see others and whether it is intentional or not. And then the final piece and most important piece is to email your practice to us at onpurpose.official@gmail.com.
Yeah, love it, man. Well, I'm glad you're back in town, brother. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Paul, and rest in peace, my friend. I didn't get to meet you, but I feel like I know you from Ali already. So I wish you guys, you or your family, the best as they move forward. And team, remember, our On Purpose workshop is coming up October 19th here in Fort Collins, Colorado. So there's only 20 spots for the whole event. There are not 20 left. So get on the Eventbrite link. It's on our Facebook page. It's on our Instagram. Get there, register for the class. Come show up. It's going to create a blueprint for you on how to create your most purposeful life. And we're looking forward to really taking the podcast to the next level and getting to know you and spend time with you.
Yep.
So remember, team, as always, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We appreciate you all, and we'll see you next week.